Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to showcase a brand new Red Team AWS lab by Cybr. Now this lab is completely free. You don't need a subscription. You can make a free account and do this right alongside of me. So I will drop a link to this lab in the description of this video. Go ahead and go over there. If you don't have a Cybr account, make one and launch the lab. Once it's launched, come back to the video and we can work through the lab together. Now, if you've never heard of Cybr, Cybr is an incredible platform to learn all things AWS. They have Red Team Labs, Blue Team Labs, DevOps Labs, and full detailed video courses. All of that is included if you get a subscription. Now, to be clear, this video is not sponsored by Cybr. For those of you who follow my channel, you know that I don't do sponsored videos. So if I talk about a platform, it's because I use them. And actually, when it comes to Cybr, Christoph, really incredible person, I did an interview with him. He actually offered me a free sub when I was looking into it to showcase it. And I told him, look, no, I want to pay you. I want to support you. So my sub to Cybr isn't free. I am paying out of my own pocket because I enjoy the platform and do recommend it to you. But let me showcase, once again, completely free lab. You don't have to pay anything to check this out, and I'll show you how to get to it. So once you create your Cybr account, if you go up here to learn, we can go to hands-on labs right here. And you can see in their hands-on labs, they have a bunch of different hands-on labs. They have a bunch of free labs. If I click free, you can check out all of their free labs here. And there's 2 pages of free labs, but you can see there's Foundational, Red Team, Blue Team, CTF, IAC, and DevSecOps. Now, the one that we are going to do, if you just go over to all right now, is going to be this one, Access Secrets Manager via Lambda function with LFI. When you click into that and start the lab, it's going to give you a starting URL right here. And it says we need to exploit a Lambda function's LFI vulnerability to compromise a web application, gaining unauthorized access to Secrets Manager. Capture the flag by retrieving the secret value. Now, let me explain some of the terminology for those of you who are new to AWS. First, a Lambda function is what's called serverless architecture, which really doesn't make much sense. There's no such thing as serverless. It's just that you aren't maintaining the backend server. There's, of course, a server that it's running on, but Lambda functions can be used to process code, to trigger different things, to even work within web apps. So that's the Lambda function. And Secrets Manager within AWS is where certain secrets are stored, hence the name implies. Passwords, credentials, things like that. So if you get access to Secrets Manager, that's not a good thing for the organization because you can really get access to all kinds of sensitive content. So we have a starting point URL. Let's go ahead and open up Caido. Now, you're welcome to use Burp Suite or you're welcome to use OWASP Zap. Any of them will work. The reason I showcase Caido is because it's much more affordable than Burp Suite Pro. The community or free edition of Caido doesn't rate limit you on different requests like Burp Suite does, and so I think it's just a little more affordable for people to get started with. So let's go ahead and create a project, and we'll just call this, I don't know, we'll call it Cybr, and I'll go to Intercept. I always like to use the built-in browser because I always forget to turn off the proxy when I'm using Firefox. Let's drop this, and for those of you watching the live stream, I will do my best to keep my eye on the chat. So if there's something I do that you want me to explain a little more, please let me know in the chat and I will slow down and do my best to explain it. But let's go ahead and grab this URL here and just see what we are working with. So we have the Cybr Employee Management Portal. We can create a profile and we can find an employee. So let's create a profile and at least see what the request looks like. So my name is Tyler. My email is hacker@hacksmarter.org. That's not actually my email. If you email that email, it won't go anywhere. My phone number is 555-555-1337. Of course, my designation is I'm a lead hacksaw. And my team is, of course, the Hack Smarter CTF team. There we go. Let me go and turn on our Intercept over here in Caido. Hit create profile, and let's jump this over to replay and see what this looks like. So we're doing a post request to create profile, and we just have our name, our email, our contact, our designation, and our team of the Hack Smarter CTF team. We'll click send, and what does it do? Profile created successfully, employee code 1001. All right, cool. Let's turn off queuing, and we'll jump back over to this. We can back out, and let's just look up our own employee code, 1001. We'll turn on Intercept again, hit Find Employee, drop this over to Replay, and hit Send. And it didn't even pull me up. That's cool. But remember, it said LFI, And so this sure looks like something that might lead to LFI, or local file inclusion. What LFI is it allows us to execute commands to read files on the remote system. So for example, if I open up my terminal here, and if I cat back out to escape my current directory and cat etc password, it will get etc password. You can see this like this to get etc password. Now there's different type of injection attacks. We could try command injection, we could try SQL injection, and we can even just play around with that. If I do this, we hit send, and employee not found. Now, what I'm doing when I'm testing SQL injection with a single quote is sometimes the application will respond with a 500 or server error. And if it does respond to a 500 error and you add another quote to close it out and then it fixes it, that's a really good indication that it's vulnerable to SQL injection. Another thing you can test to see if it's vulnerable to command injection, and there's a few different ways you could do this. We could do something like this and do ID to see if we can figure out if we can get the ID. And you see we cannot, it seems to ignore it. We could try things like that as well. That's just a bad request. We can try double. There's just different typical things here. If you look at Hacktrace, you can get all this information as well. And none of that works. But if we go back to the lab, we have a really good hint of what we're looking for, and that is local file inclusion. So kind of what I showed you beginning. So let's give local file inclusion a shot because the lab clearly hints at that. So let's just escape out of our current directory. We don't know how many, but we'll do that. And let's see if we can read etc password. And we can. So this is a confirmed vulnerability. If we were doing a pen test, this is a pretty critical finding. I've actually come across this before on real pen tests, on real web apps, in production environments where I've been able to get LFI and read files on the remote system. But you can see here, we have this SBX user, they can't log in, and we have the root user. Now, one thing that you want to keep in mind is because this is running in AWS in a Lambda function, you're generally not going to try to get things like SSH creds and get access that way, but instead what we want to do is see if there's a role attached to the Lambda function. When you create a Lambda function, you can attach a role to it. A role is kind of like a user within AWS, and so the Lambda function has all the rights that the user has. So if we can get the credentials for the Lambda function, we might be able to compromise the AWS environment. So let's give that a shot. One way we can do that is we want to read the environmental variables, and we can actually do that with LFI. We'll see if I'm going to go off memory. I might mess this up. I think it's proc self environ to read the environmental variables. Let's see, I can't say variables. And you can see it actually did work, and this is something you will see on a Lambda function if you get LFI, that we're able to do this. So when we look at this, there's a few things that are going to matter the most to us. One is we have an AWS secret access key. That's going to be important to us right there. We have an AWS access key ID. That's also going to be important to us. And we have our AWS session token down there. So now we need to set up a profile in AWS so we can enumerate this a little bit further. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll just CD over to Cybr, so we're in a directory for this, and we can do AWS configure profile. Here's Cybr from a previous lab. Let's just call this LFI for local. Actually, we'll call it Lambda because this is a Lambda function, and it's going to ask us for the access key ID. So we can go ahead and grab the access key ID right here. We'll copy that. It's going to ask us for the secret access key, which we saw that right here. Now, this is sort of like a username and password in AWS. The access key ID in and of itself isn't sensitive, but the access key ID in combination with the secret and in combination with the session token, that is not a good thing to be exposed to an attacker. Let's drop our secret access key there. Our region, we'll just call it US East 1, and output format is JSON. Now, you can notice we were not prompted for our session token. There's a few different ways we can add our session token, but if we try to do it right now with just that, it's not going to work, and I'll show this to you. In Linux, to figure out your permissions, you can say, who am I? But in AWS, it's a longer command. But our next is this an AWS CLI tool I have to install it? Yes, let me show that to you. So AWS actually has really good documentation for this. So if you go to this page, you can literally just copy this command right here, and it will work for you to install the AWS CLI. Let me grab that there, drop it there, and there we go. All right, but in Linux, you just type who am I? Well, in AWS, they have to make it a little bit more confusing. So we have to do AWS STS get caller identity profile lambda. But you can notice it says, hey, the security token included in the request is invalid because we did not include a security token. And in this case, we need to include a security token. Let me show you how we can do that. First, I need to stop sharing my screen because I need to go ahead and clear some stuff out of my AWS credential file so that I don't expose all of it to you. Let me just clear these out. Save this. Okay. Now I can go back to sharing my screen. So what we need to do is open up this file. When you set up the AWS CLI and make these creds, this file is going to be automatically created for you. It's sort of like SSH. When you create an SSH key, you have a .ssh command. Well, in AWS, you have .aws, which for a pen test, this is a good pulse exploitation tip. If you get access to a Linux machine during a pen test, look to see if there's a .aws or a .azure folder, because you might be able to pivot into the cloud environment if you find credentials there. But let's go ahead and open up this file. So we'll do mousepad, home, Tyler, AWS credentials, and you can see here's my Lambda profile right here. We need to add another field, AWS session token, like so. Do equals and grab that session token right here. So let me go ahead and grab that token. We'll do that and go over to here, paste it in, Control S to save. And now let's see if we can get our credentials. And we can. You can see that allows us to authenticate to the target AWS environment. We have initial access. We have compromise. This is kind of like a shell. In some ways in AWS, we have a shell or an initial foothold in our target's AWS environment. You can see our user ID. You can see our account number and our ARN, our unique identifier for the AWS account. Now we need to figure out what permissions we have. Now you can do this manually with a bunch of different commands, and the lab actually shows you how to do this. I want to show you how to automate this with a cool tool called Pacu. Now I'll show you Pacu real quick. Pacu is developed, in my opinion, by the coolest pen testing firm around. I work at Rhino. I help actually maintain Pacu. But Pacu is kind of like Metasploit for AWS. It allows you to enumerate, launch exploits, and all those kinds of things. I will grab a link to this here for the live stream. But to install Pacu, really easy. You can do pipx install git and then paste in the git URL here. So for example, it would be grab this like so, and then you can use pipx to install it, so you do it in its own virtual environment and you don't break any dependencies. Now, I've already done that, so I'm not going to run that command, but if you don't have Pacu, you can install it that way. We'll go ahead and open up Pacu. We're going to go ahead and do 0 for a new session. We'll call this new session Lambda, and now the first thing we need to do is import our keys. Remember, we set up keys called Lambda, so let's just do import keys Lambda. And now if we do who am I, you can see we successfully imported our keys as that Lambda function. Now what we want to do is figure out, hey, what permissions do we have? Well, the cool thing is in Pacu, we can search. Now, AWS calls those different permissions IAM, or Identity and Access Management. So in Pacu, let's go ahead and do search IAM to see what things we have in IAM. And one thing that we can do here is IAM brute force permissions. I actually added this module myself over to Pacu, and we can do help on that. And if we do help IAM brute force permissions, it says how it works. It says this module will automatically run through all possible API calls and supported services in order to enumerate permissions. This uses the Enumerate IAM library by Andres Riancho, and it accepts a region. So let me go ahead and clear. Actually, apparently that doesn't work in Pacu. Maybe that'll be something I add. But we can do run IAM brute force permissions, and we can pass it our region of US East 1, like so. And now it's going to go through and do all these different API calls and figure out, hey, what permissions does our account have in the AWS environment that we have compromised? You can see right away it discovered the secrets manager list secrets worked, so that's good. That's a good indicator. That's something we want to try. We have the get caller identity that worked, and it's going to try all these different API calls. Let's figure out what permissions we have. It's kind of like linps if you're thinking about Linux, or winps for Windows. But we can see we have the secrets manager. So let me just open up a new tab, and let's type Pacu again. We can do this at the same time. Let's open up our Lambda session, and now let's search for secret, because we know we have access to secrets manager, and you can see there is a job down here under the category Enum that enumerates and dumps secrets from AWS Secrets Manager and AWS Parameter Store. So that seems like it might be helpful. Let's run the help command to get more information about this. We'll do help secrets enum. And it says this module enumerates secrets, blah, blah, blah. It accepts regions. We can do Secrets Manager or Parameter Store. By default, I believe it does all of them. This is still doing the enumeration. Let's run this and just see if we're able to find anything. So we'll do run secrets enum. We'll do region US East 1 and let it do its thing. And you can see right away, it found a secret, it probed the secret, it couldn't do anything from the parameter store, and it downloaded the secret. And it says, hey, check this area to see if you can get the secret. So let's do that. We'll go ahead and CD over to home, tyler.local, share, Pacu, lambda, download secrets manager, ls, we can cat secrets.txt, and you can see we successfully grabbed the secrets from Secrets Manager, and the flag is your secret. Let me go ahead and grab that. We can jump back over to our scenario, put that in, and it will, the flag is correct. Nice job. We successfully got the flag. If we look over at Pacu, you can see that Pacu is done doing this. Once we're done enumerating our permissions, what's really cool is we can just do who am I, and we can see what permissions we have in the environment. You can see, according to this, we have 3 allow permissions. We can describe endpoints of DynamoDB, we can list secrets of Secrets Manager, and we can get our caller identity. And of course, we use those permissions in order to grab the secret. So hey, let me know in the comments what you think about this lab. Once again, it's completely free. You can do this. The cool thing about all of Cybr's labs as well is they all have detailed walkthroughs. So I showed you an alternative way of solving the lab. If you scroll down, there's a detailed lab walkthrough on how to solve this, and they're going to show you how to do it the manual way as far as the enumeration in AWS. You can see them listing out the secrets, finding the secret, and then pulling it down, and also a walkthrough of the vulnerable code. Once again, completely free lab. Cybr is an incredible platform. Hats off to Christoph and the entire team at Cybr for this lab and all of the other labs. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Let me know if something was confusing. Believe it or not, I do my best to read all of the comments on my YouTube videos and try to reply to any questions you have. So let me know any questions you have, and I will see you over in the comments.